We launched masterQueue at a financial services technology conference called Finovate in the spring of 2011. We'd been selected from 600 applicants as one of the 60 startup companies to present a 7-minute live demo of our software in front of 1,000 bankers in San Francisco.
We transform inexperienced and low-performing collectors into top performers. And we're able to do this because we use the data in ways that's simply not possible with companies who are still using paper reports and legacy collection systems. One example of how masterQueue uses data in a unique way is with our mapping technology. We've built this through strategic relationships that we've developed with Navtech and Bing Maps. Here, a person posted a photo of themselves online using a GPS-enabled smartphone. masterQueue grabbed the meta tag from the phone, gathered all the relevant data on the person that was associated with the address where the photo was taken, the property owner, their phone number, the occupants of the address, their current phone numbers, their email addresses. What does this mean to your bottom line? Well, the client that I mentioned a minute ago, they're saving an hour per employee per day, and if you multiply that over a 600-person call center, that's the equivalent of 77 full-time employees a day gathering data. That doesn't even take into account how much more effective they are at their job and the more dramatic improvements that they've seen in locating their lost assets.
Looking back at this, what's ironic is that we were talking about machine learning and predictive analytics and artificial intelligence and big data before those words were even common in business. When we built masterQueue, we knew collectors and skip tracers had a problem. There was too much data to use manual processes to gather, organize, and track it. The other problem was the lenders had a bigger problem as the collectors were fine with not making phone calls. They didn't use data in the same way that I was taught to use data back when I started as a field rep and a collector at Chrysler. Back then you made phone calls and you spoke to people to verify an address before you placed it out for repo. Now, there's too much data to gather manually, too much for your brain to efficiently process, and it's a hassle to copy and paste selected pieces of data. So with that in mind, we've spent the past 6 years working diligently on a solution, one that many of you here today use to create efficiencies in your collection, skip, and repossession process workflow. We call that solution the core of masterQueue, or the masterQueue core. When you utilize all the tools in masterQueue, it allows you to see the magic happen, as suddenly you're strengthening your core competencies in all aspects of collections, skip, and repo. There are 6 pieces to the core of masterQueue, and all are important to each other. Moving to the top of the list in 2017 is the most important of all the features in masterQueue: security.
This is in 12 countries, 5,000 staff. You'd think they'd be secure, wouldn't you? Make some noise. Pause. A smokescreen. A decoy breach to hide what they're really after.
When we launched masterQueue in 2011, security was nothing like it is today. And in 2017, we saw major security breaches that caused the game to change again. Software code reviews by external third parties became the norm, as did constant ethical hacking and penetration testing to ensure everyone's PII was safe from all access points, inside or out. The biggest trend we saw in 2017 was that the small homegrown softwares couldn't pass the audit requirements of the larger, more sophisticated lenders. While we saw security trump compliance for the first time in 2017, that doesn't mean the regulators have let up. We added even more compliance tracking tools in masterQueue in 2017, including rules that specifically address the proposed CFPB debt collection info sharing rules coming in 2018, with the first rewrite of the FDCPA since it was originally published, before there were computers, before there were cell phones, texting, email, or even call recording. Once we get past the security and compliance requirements, now we can get back to why we actually built masterQueue in the first place: to improve efficiency. We have more integrations into more data providers than any software in any industry. And by allowing our users to automatically gather data and not have to go look for data, we save them a tremendous amount of time and money. Once you've gathered the data, how you organize it is the next step. One surprising thing we've seen since launching masterQueue is how willing companies are to trust the intuition of their employees. Intuition is the most powerful tool in the toolbox inside of your brain, and no computer can beat that when it's coming from a person with true intuitive skills based upon their expertise of a certain area. However, we've proven that even the most intuitive skip tracers with years of experience will still make mistakes that computers or programmable predictive analytics will not make. And that's why many people in the know are saying that artificial intelligence will have such a huge impact in the financial services space, especially in debt collection. We've literally been saying this since we launched masterQueue in 2011. And unlike many companies that talk about artificial intelligence, we've actually built a predictive model that uses a recalculating algorithm called the Findex score. And when we place scores on phone numbers and insert them into our no-contact call queue, it drives right-party contact percentages up significantly, in some cases over 100% of where the company currently is at using intuitive and manual methods of deciding what phone number to call when trying to contact a person they've lost touch with. Once you have the data and the predictive analytics, the next step in masterQueue is to place automated workflow on the steps of the process you want to follow. This becomes data science versus the art of skip tracing. Again, intuition's great, but following a step-by-step process in the earliest stages of no contact, before the second payment's due or before you assign a skip for repo, is a much more efficient process when managing teams. Not everyone is gifted with the intuition of an Alex Price or a Columbo. While their intuition may be right enough to where it makes a skip process an art and a great tool they're blessed to have, the problem is that most collectors and skip tracers' intuition is not at that level. And then, at that point, intuition is a very inefficient tool that can cause you, your company, and your downstream vendors who are the recipient of your poor intuition a lot of wasted time and money. In 2016, the CFPB announced proposed debt collection rules, and our chairman Mark Floyd and I joined Stephanie Allsbrooks of Defy Solutions to talk about the impact of these rules on the front and back ends of the auto finance lending and debt collections industries. While those rules were supposed to go into effect in 2017, it now appears we're looking at sometime in 2018. These rules will have a significant impact on vendors and lenders, so we wrote a number of ways to ensure you're protected in masterQueue. But first, let's look at what and who these newly proposed laws will impact.
Welcome to Risk Watch. I'm Taylor Reich. If the CFPB gets its way, new protections in the debt collection market would limit the contact collectors may have with consumers and impose more stringent requirements designed to reduce the number of complaints the CFPB receives from consumers.
The problem, according to the CFPB, stems from information getting lost or altered when debts are transferred to collection agencies or debt buyers. It argues that these problems don't only hurt consumers, they also drive up costs for collectors and hurt the industry as a whole. On July 28, 2016, the Bureau proposed an overhaul to the debt collection process that seeks to increase oversight from the first time a collector looks at a delinquent loan to the last time he or she attempts to collect on the debt. The 1977 Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, or FDCPA, made progress in preventing unfair or abusive debt collection practices, but until the creation of the CFPB, no government agency has had the authority to issue regulations to implement the act. And that is precisely what the CFPB is hoping to do. I want to discuss 3 key parts of the proposal that could affect your financial institution. First, in its outline about the proposed changes, the CFPB pointed out that the FDCPA covers debt collectors who are collecting debt owed to a third party, not collectors who are collecting debt owed directly to them. Dodd-Frank expanded that coverage to some collectors who collect their own debts, but from the get-go, the CFPB makes it clear that their rule changes would apply to everyone who collects debt from consumers: collection agencies, debt buyers, collection law firms, and loan servicers, including both large firms with over 100 employees and small 20-person shops. The various trade associations are analyzing the provisions of the proposal to see how they will affect financial institutions specifically. But if your financial institution handles any debt collection in-house, the rule will apply to you. Second, as I mentioned before, the proposal comes in response to the large numbers of complaints consumers have made about collectors trying to collect from the wrong consumer or for the wrong amount. The CFPB has several ideas on how to answer these complaints. For example, it proposes to impose mandatory steps collectors must take to substantiate the debts they are trying to collect. It proposes to revamp disclosures surrounding litigation, consumer rights, and old debts. It's proposing strict rules limiting phone calls and phone messages from collectors.
This slide shows how you can set up masterQueue to automatically perform all of your TCPA, SCRA, and other regulatory scrubs, and how masterQueue will stop numbers from being called due to regulatory rules, and these rules stay with the account. They stay with the person and they stay with the phone number. So even if the account is moved to an outside vendor, then the rule still stays attached to the account, to the person or the phone number, and no matter who internally or externally at a third-party vendor is working the account, the rule stays in place. The masterQueue Chorus Solutions addresses many needs of lenders and their vendors who are working to locate customers they've lost touch with. We're excited to have you here with us at our 2017 user conference, and we hope you find the time you spend with us to be informative and entertaining.